Hello everyone, welcome to my tutorial. We already know that this tutorial is about the web application development using the Spring MVC framework. So before talking about the Spring MVC framework in detail, we need to understand what a framework is. In one word, we can say that the framework makes our life easy. So let's say we have a web application that tells that a student has taken how many courses. Okay, so we have a student object, and then we may have like multiple courses for that student. So here we have this object and this object, and this object is dependent on student object. So that means the course is dependent on the student object. Now, whenever we are loading the application, we need to make sure that these are loaded properly. That means whenever the student is loaded, the course is loaded as well. So this is, we are calling the dependency, and all the dependent objects need to load. And who is managing this? The framework is managing this. And in this case, it's the Spring framework. Okay, so that means something that we cannot do manually, or it's very hard to do it manually, the framework is making our life easy. Okay, so this is just a simple example, and consider that in a web application we can have hundreds of objects which are dependent to each other, and this dependency is sometimes termed as the dependency injection and is being done by the framework. And in this case, this is the Spring framework. The Spring framework can also help us in many other ways, and one of the examples, very good example, is the database connectivity and how we are managing the database. So that is also being handled by the Spring framework. So now let's get into the definitions of it. So the Java frameworks are already written codes that work as a template that programmers, developers can use writing applications. Developers can write applications without the manual overhead of creating everything from scratch. That is what we say, that in order to make, or in order to populate all the dependencies, the framework is doing it. The overhead is created by the framework itself. And on the other hand, a library is a collection of frequently used routines or resources, but the framework is the app's skeleton and can be a collection of several libraries. So that means a framework is a collection of several libraries, and the framework is making sure that whenever we are loading the application or whenever we are doing something, it's already there. We do not need to make it. So let's say you are going to have, or you are going to create a building. So the framework is kind of like the skeleton of the building, and as a programmer, our job is just to put what furnitures should be going into in different rooms. That's it. Okay, so again, the skeleton is the framework, and how we are going to do the inside job, that's the job of the programmer or the developer. And then the framework has the control to call an action. It already has the template and knows which next action needs to be called. Okay, so we do not need to consider about the nitty-gritty of each of the individual actions. The framework will take care of the actions. We just need to know that how we are going to organize these things. Okay, so then for the Spring framework, Spring provides a comprehensive programming and configuration model for modern Java-based enterprise applications. So we can create the whole application. It's not only the web application, it can be any kind of enterprise application. We can use the Spring framework to make it. And it provides the functionalities as follows, like it has some core technologies, and within the core technologies, the dependency injection we already talked about, and we're going to talk about the DI in detail later on. And then it manages the events, resources, validation, EOP, and data binding. Okay, so these are the very core technologies that the Spring framework provides us. And then it provides the testing framework as well. the mock objects and the test context framework, Spring MVC test. So we can do any kind of testing with this framework. And then we have the data access facilities, which is the transaction management, like how or when we are going to save it, is it going to save properly or not? All of these things are being taken care by the Spring framework. And it also provides the DAO support, JDBC, and object relational mapping. We'll be talking about those in the later on. And then it provides an integration. So let's say we are going to have an email application within our web application. So how we are going to integrate that email with our web application. This is the integration part. And then the remoting, and then the JMS, and the scheduling and the cache. So that means that the Spring framework is providing us with so many built-in facilities that we are just going to use. And use the use of Spring framework. It helps us focus on core tasks rather than reinventing the wheel, follows best practices and design patterns, makes testing easy, adapts with changing libraries, updates are easy and documented, and have libraries for security. So it does a whole range of functionalities. It already provides us. We have to just use it to make our web application. That is what the Spring framework is. Again, to sum it up, the framework is like a skeleton. It gives you the outside of the building with the walls and everything. And it's our job as a programmer or developer to populate each of the rooms with the furnitures. Okay. So the framework is just the skeleton. It gives everything to us to make a good application. Okay. So that's all for today. Thank you.